What's up, guys? It's me, JellyKnees. And before we get into talking about Talos and his spotlight and all the cool little details that are in there, I do just want to talk to you guys for a second and let you know that I'm going to take a break over the next couple of weeks. There's been some stuff going on in my personal life that's made it more difficult to make content consistently for you. And so I'm going to go deal with that. And then in a couple weeks, come back to you guys with a whole bunch of content you already know, cover all the things we missed, the whole 9 yards. Tinfoil Task Force will be here in spirit the whole time, so don't you worry. I will still be doing Enter the Ether with Mangoose every week, so be sure to be on the lookout for those. This week's Enter the Ether will actually be on my channel. We're going to start alternating it between the two, so make sure you guys see that. I'll have links in the description for you all. But that aside, thank you guys so much for all the support so far. Let's talk about Talos. So Talos's Spotlight has come out today, and we get to see this kind of in-game version render of Talos, and I think this is the best one we've seen so far of all of the renders. I think this one looks the most clean. And I don't know how to put it other than that. That looks really, really good. So first up, we see kind of a surprising archetype from Talos is that he's going to be a gladiator diver, which gladiator we kind of expected, kind of being the bruiser, but a diver is something that I certainly didn't think was going to happen. Maybe an off tank of some kind, but having the diver qualities for his archetype kind of caught me off guard, and that he's going to be able to get to the back line and do lots of damage. But there's an ability he has that shows why he is that way. So we'll talk about that as well in just a couple minutes. And he's part of the Knight class. So if you don't remember, the Knight class gets access to a relic hunt and can complete certain objectives around the map or on the map to gain a relic that gives them bonus power, stats, resistances, something. We don't quite know what the specific bonus is yet, just that they're going to get something for it. So again, we see Talos in game here, looks incredible. The axe fits. His animations actually look really good in comparison to some of the ones we've seen so far. And we see that Aran is the training dummy in this particular video, which if we follow the past videos, means that Aran will be the spotlight next week. The other cool thing we're seeing here is the health bar UI over the top of Aran. So we see that as Talos hits him, the health goes down, and that when he hits 0, Aran dies. We see the death animation for Aran there. But so Talos's passive is Scavenging Huntsman. What this is that every time Talos gets a kill or assist, he's going to gain stats from the person that he killed. A maximum of 10 stacks, they said. We don't know what that's going to look like in terms of assists to kills, if there's any difference there, or specifically how much of the stats we're going to get in that regard as well. Talos's first ability is Huntsman's Axe. So if you see there, we get the animation for Talos swings his axe forward in front of him, hits Aran and the Knight minion. I was told that this is a blue Knight minion specifically. So it sounds like we're going to have colors based on which side the minions are on, as well as their classes. I think that's a good differentiation tool. So that's super helpful and good to know. But so we see those two getting struck by kind of this wave that Talos sends out by swinging his axe. And the thing that they mentioned is that Talos, when he hits his axe and he lands the cast of Huntsman's Axe, he will actually get a second cast of the axe ability. The cool thing with Talos, there you see it right there. The cool thing with Talos is he's actually going to have a stamina bar instead of a mana bar. And I talked with Skifter about this a little bit. They also made a blog post going over the stamina and what that means and how it's going to work. And basically, stamina is going to be a resource that regenerates very quickly while Talos is outside of combat and very slowly while Talos is in combat. All of his abilities will have different amounts of stamina cost that at the moment they won't increase as levels increase throughout the game. So a level 1 Huntsman's Axe versus a level 5 Huntsman's Axe will still cost the same amount of stamina. Some of the abilities that have multiple casts, some of them will cost stamina multiple times and some of them will not. So we'll have to see how that kind of feels. And we'll see with Talos's ultimate that he actually regenerates stamina based on how many myths he hits in the ultimate. So there's going to be a lot of play around making sure you have enough stamina to go through the fight that you want to do and landing combos sufficiently to keep that stamina bar as full as possible for as long as possible. And what they mentioned is that Talos will start with a determined stamina pool, and then every level that stamina pool will increase slightly. So the farther into the game you are and the more levels you have, that means that you're going to be able to cast more abilities without having to leave combat to regenerate all of your stamina as quickly as possible. I did also talk to Skifter about minions and whether or not they count as in combat in terms of stamina regen, and he said that they absolutely do. So if a minion hits you or you enter combat with a minion, you will still have that slower regeneration of your stamina bar. So with that said, let's get into Talos's second ability. So Talos has it's kind of a two-part ability similar to the first one. He's got Mighty Kick and Mighty Uppercut. So the first ability, Talos is going to kick Iran here and kind of have it seems like maybe a little bit of a stun attached to it. And once you land that ability, you'll have a certain amount of time to do this like sweeping edge that you just saw, knocking the ground upwards. We saw this ability with Malaya's Spotlight last week. And this ability will have a knock up to it. So you're going to kind of briefly be able to stun somebody or disorient them with the kick. If you land the kick, you'll be able to follow up with that knock up. We saw here that you can kind of do it either immediately or you can wait out the second part a little bit. So we'll see it again here in just a second. So we have the kick coming in on Iran, and then immediately afterwards, we have the Mighty Uppercut, and then we have the kick and a hold, and then we have the uppercut a couple seconds later. So you will have a little bit of time to hold that ability to line it up for a better hit, and it will hit multiple people versus the kick looks like it's just going to hit a single target. All in all, I think it's a very cool ability, and it'll be really nice to see. The third one is Radial Sever. So this ability looks absolutely insane. So from above, we get this view here. And if you really look at it, we're able to see Talos has this giant spin. It's one spin all the way around, does physical damage on the initial spin. And then they also said that any enemy myths that get hit by this will have a bleed over time, which does magic damage. So the initial ability, the spin itself, physical, the bleed is magical. But the interesting thing is how big this looks. When you look at it from above, I think you get a really good perspective of how wide that ability sweeps. I did ask if that ability is actually that size and was told that it was. So that's insane. That seems really strong. So maybe the damage is really low to kind of counteract that. Because in team fights, that looks like it's wide enough to absolutely demolish a whole team, or at least hit a whole team and affect them with bleed. And then any effects he has because of items and things like that really, really stacks up very quickly. The other thing they didn't mention in the video, but they mentioned in a blog post, is that Radial Sever is going to also lower the cooldown of the Talos's other abilities when it's used, which I think is insane. It really shows that Talos is going to be very combo oriented. So I could easily see that we're going to have Talos walk up, Mighty Kick, use both of his first abilities, then follow up with the uppercut, then use Radial Sever to lower all those cooldowns again, and then maybe go in with his ultimate, which we're about to see right here. Talos's ultimate is Fearless. He jumps forward, like you can see there, it looks like there's going to be some aiming quality to it, but jumped forward and left this giant like hole or impact area on the ground. Now, when Talos lands that ultimate, whenever he hits enemy myths, he's going to regenerate stamina automatically for that. So the more myths he hits with his ultimate, the more stamina he gets, the more abilities he can cast in combat. I think it's a very, very cool thing. I keep mentioning the combos, and I think Talos is the first myth we're seeing so far to really have a fully kind of fleshed out combo that I can like visualize without even needing to play the myth at all. Really cool stuff to see in that regard. We saw before he leapt out a ways and did the ability, and now we're seeing it's right in front of him. That's what makes me say that it's probably aimable, that Talos can pick a close distance, a far distance, whatever it may be. But really, really cool nevertheless. I really like the look of the ability, the impact zone, very, very nice stuff. And I'm excited to see how that plays in game and how much damage it does. Like I said, there we go. Another great clip of seeing it jump out in front of him versus doing it right there in his line of sight. This is a cool thing. So right here, we see these little torches and this little platform here. We weren't quite sure what this was, and we had to ask just to make sure that we were accurate. This is actually one of the teleporters from lane to lane. So from presumably the void lane to either ice or fire lane that Talos walks through. We also see a lot of the map here looking really, really solid. There are a couple design changes that it looks like from the last time we've seen some of these areas, or maybe we just haven't seen this one in particular. It's kind of hard to tell. We see jungle camps out in the distance. There's a lot of little info here. Jungle camps, jungle minions. We see the towers there in the center. We can see off in the distance the horizon. Again, jungle minions here on the map. Really, really cool stuff. They end up going through some of the items for him. The interesting thing in that regard is that some of the items they recommend are jungle items, which makes me think they believe Talos to be a jungler as well. We had Malaya recommended with jungle items. Talos is recommended with jungle items. I would expect that we're going to see Aran recommended with jungle items, and then Leah almost certainly recommended with jungle items. So I'm curious who the solo laner is in their minds for that regard, assuming we're going to have the 1-1-2 setup like we've talked about in previous videos. So to end it all out, we get the Crimson Talos here. Again, very good looking skin. I really like this design overall. I don't honestly, after seeing both in game, don't know which I'd prefer to use. It's hard for me to determine one way or the other. The thing I will say about this skin is I wish we had some more accents on his axe as well, matching the kind of change in skin aesthetic. But that's just personal taste. And then we see kind of a back animation, or what we assume is a back animation right here at the end of the whole spotlight. All in all, very solid spotlight. I think it's they did a great job. There are animation things that they could probably improve, but being pre-alpha, I'm not too worried about those going in. So, but I would love to hear what you guys think about the spotlight as a whole, and we're going to talk about the blog post they also put out at the same time. So, as some of you may notice in the most recent spotlight, we revealed a new type of essence that our myths may be able to use. This new essence is called Stamina and will work in a new and unique way. Talos will be the first myth to use this essence type, and the only myth in the initial pre-alpha 7. First off, Stamina will be gated by a duration of time you're in combat. While in combat, you have reduced stamina regen, and out of combat, you have massively increased regen. At level 1, you'll have a base amount of stamina and will gain a small amount per level. As you level up, the stamina regeneration will also increase, both in and out of combat. Your out of combat stamina regeneration will always be directly proportional to your in combat amount at all stages of the game. So that line makes me believe that it's probably going to be percentage based, that when you're in combat, you are only get 25% of your regular stamina regen. So I think that that's a very good sign. Or maybe it's just that if you have 200 out of combat, you get 50 in combat, and you 300, you get 75, whatever it's going to work out to be. It'll be really interesting to see in that regard. Your out of combat stamina regen will always be directly proportional. Stamina is not a stat you'll be able to buy from any items in game or loadout options before the game begins. The stamina you have is all you're allotted, so use it wisely. So there's not going to be any items that increase stamina. There's not going to be any kind of loadout options that increase stamina. It's just going to be a flat amount, and you get some every level with the regen that's applied to it. I think it's a very good mechanic. We'll have to see how it feels really when we get into game. But until then, I don't have any complaints in that regard. Playing with a stamina user will be quite different than a mana user. You have to be more precise in the decisions you make regarding anything combat related, as your decision to clear a jungle camp or wave of minions now might leave you with a lack of stamina to use your abilities in the following moments. Talos has numerous skills that add to his skill cap to allow users to play around his stamina their way. Using Frenzy will add to the cost for Talos to spend stamina while also increasing damage all around to his kit. His third ability reduces cooldowns the more myths he hits, so that's his Radial Sever, and that allows him to make more rotations of his abilities with the stamina that he still has. So something I forgot to mention that they talk about here is Talos's right mouse button ability, which is Frenzy. Frenzy is kind of like we thought about, that he will gain increased damage at the cost of increased stamina for his abilities. And something that they mentioned is that the basic attack, Talos's basic attack while he's in frenzy, will cost stamina as well. So normally basic attacks won't cost any stamina, but when you're in frenzy and doing increased damage with your basic attacks, it will cost some stamina to do that. So very interesting thing to see them go back and forth with being in frenzy versus out and managing that stamina bar. The other downside to Talos's frenzy or his special ability is that at the end, Talos is going to become kind of fatigued or tired and lose movement speed at the end of his frenzy. So he's going to go in really hard, but at the end to be very vulnerable to counterattacks and people chasing him down if he doesn't accomplish what he wants. Very clear pro con there, tied in with the combos and his stamina. I think is going to make Talos probably one of the harder myths in the pre-alpha 7, at least that we know about so far. But just trying to manage all of these different things will make it very, very interesting. And I can't wait to see how he feels and plays when we get our hands on the game. But guys, that's all I've got for Talos. Please let me know anything you thought about the stamina, Talos, the spotlight as a whole down in the comments below. I appreciate it very much. And make sure you get subscribed to make sure that when I do come back and make more content, you guys are able to see it. And you'll see all of the Enter the Ether content that we make in the coming weeks. If you want to see more ethereal content that I've made right now, though, I have a playlist over here for you. On the other side, we'll have a video just for you made by YouTube. And again, get subscribed, click the icon above my head to make sure you don't miss anything in the future. And I'll see you guys in the next one.